Describe the art of the cave dogs. Wow. When I try to talk to people, they're like, is it a play? Not really. Well, they're spoken words. Yeah, but I'm not speaking them. We're driving down the road, I like my bike, I like your legs. Is it a narrative? Yes. Can you follow it? Yes. But, you know, it's open for interpretation. Instead of going for the very concrete, we move toward the abstract. You know, you want everybody to come home with their own story.
It puts all the arts together. It puts dance, visual arts, theater, music, sound, all that stuff together, and that's what it is.
From when Suzanne really first started doing this work, it's evolved greatly since then. She started off for her, I think for her master's thesis, making these small handmade objects and then projecting light on them and the shadow they cast. It was a direct correlation between the object and the shadow. And kind of from that, she kind of extended that off when she met a few dancers and musicians and a cave, and thus Cave Dogs was formed.
The possibilities were limitless there. We could use the cave itself as the canvas, essentially. Cave Dogs started 1992. There's 10 of us in the core group, and it's primarily visual artists, but there's also dancers, a writer, and musicians. You're real, there's your shadow, there's Tracy and Mira walking in shadow, and then there's Luke's shadow that looks like it's your shadow. And I'm sort of the catalyst. I'm the one who got them all together. It's not just my piece, though, by any means.
I call myself a lighter, I guess is the only word that I can use to describe it. I do between 80 and 90% of the lighting, and it's just with 2 mag lights, the big 6 cells. They're pretty heavy sometimes. Lighting the person or the prop, the relationship of your light to the prop and the prop to the scrim determines the size. And so there's those 2 kind of scales that you can play with in terms of getting different effects. Lighting the show is, it's like using a big paintbrush in a way. The light becomes an extension of you, kind of the same way a pencil would become an extension of your arm.
It kind of reminds me of Matisse as he was getting older. He'd potentially get longer and longer brushes just so he could, like, you know, he's kind of a rotund man. He could kind of sit back and still make his marks.
And lighting is probably 90% of the show. I am the figure in the second story. As a figure, I could be doing everything right, and Chris, who lights me the majority of the time, if he's not doing his job, doesn't work.
We added the element of video projection from the front, and the shadows could then interact with whatever environment we were projecting. I'm directing as a director would for a movie or a film of any sort. So when I envision how the story is going to be portrayed, it's through pans and cuts and zooms. Because it's come down to this scrim and it's no longer cast on a cave wall or something like that, it's now, to me, it's like a canvas in a way. And when I'm out front directing whatever's going on in the back, I'm looking at the whole composition. It's like thousands and thousands of drawings or paintings, and we can change it instantly. That was good. Let's do it again, though.
Take time up, boil them, and then do it right.
Then we have what you call a get-together.
How to Build a Raft, it's 3 short stories all interlinked by one story that tells you how to build a raft. They all have elements of migration, movement, and gain and loss of family and community.
Welcome to Mate for Life. Our first contestant is Lucy. Let's make her feel right at home.
The writer, Gene Shepard, researched lots of different people's stories, including the migrant folks of the Mid-Hudson Valley, myself. The third story is her story.
Lucy, you're in the lead with 150 points. What's it gonna be?
And she took all of these stories from all these different cultures and montaged or collaged them together, sculpted them together to make How to Build a Raft. I see all of those stories as being documentary stories. By that, I mean that they were all researched and we tried to remain as authentic as possible.
An excuse for Glenn for a story, half remembered or half invented.
I never started with a story before. We always started with props. Like, people would make props, and we'd see what we could do with the props, and then we'd make a story from the props. Because I'm coming out of a background of sculpture and metalsmithing and all sorts of things like that. So that's where I started. First couple months, we would just show each other all, hey, look at this, look what I can do with this prop. And it was hysterical. Like, I wouldn't have come up with, 9/10 of what they came up with on my own, because I have just a certain amount of things that I can figure out, and then put everybody together, and it's kind of endless. The evolution of cave dogs depends on the people that are involved with it and what they know and what they're interested in doing.
One of the reasons why we persist to do cave dogs, to do shows, it's definitely not a monetary thing. That's not even part of the question. Even though, various parents would like to think, well, perhaps you can make some money with this thing. It's like, well, that's really not the point. The point is, I think, really, a lot of it's just to get together with a bunch of folks, make something that we feel is really wonderful, and show it to someone else, and hope they react the same way.